The answer to hate is not hate. The answer is love. These were the words of Erika Kirk, standing before thousands, only days after losing her husband Charlie Kirk to an assassin's bullet. How can a woman, grieving, broken, widowed, stand in front of a nation and speak not of vengeance, but of forgiveness? Is this human strength? Is it faith? Or is it something deeper? A glimpse into the shadow of our society, and the rare moment when the shadow is transformed instead of unleashed. In this video, we will explore Erika Kirk's extraordinary speech. We will hear how Sana Ebrahimi, a Muslim woman from another culture, responded to it with awe. And we will understand, through the lens of Carl Jung Shadow Work, why forgiveness is not weakness, but the only way to integrate the darkness that threatens to consume us all. The speech, Erika Kirk's testimony. On that stage, dressed in black, her voice steady yet trembling, Erika Kirk began with scripture. "Here I am, Lord. Send me." A line from the prophet Isaiah, a declaration of surrender, and a promise to carry the burden that had fallen upon her. She told the crowd about the moment Charlie died, that he did not suffer, that his last breath came in peace. And in that peace, she found something greater than despair. She spoke directly of the man who killed her husband, Tyler Robinson. And here, the words stunned the room. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." The words of Christ on the cross, now spoken by a widow for the man who had just destroyed her world. Imagine that moment. Tears in the audience, silence heavy as stone, and Erika declaring not hatred but forgiveness. She reminded them all, the answer to hate is not hate. The answer is love. And then, she turned to the crowd, to the millions watching online, and she called for something larger. Not revenge, not anger, but revival. Revival of faith, revival of family, revival of a culture that believes in forgiveness and refuses to be swallowed by rage. This was not a political speech, it was something else, something archetypal. The widow transformed into the prophet, the personal tragedy transformed into a national ritual. Through her, the collective shadow of grief and fury was given another path, not destruction, but integration. Jungian lens, the shadow and forgiveness. Carl Jung taught that every human being carries a shadow. The shadow holds what we deny, what we repress, what we refuse to face. It contains rage. It contains the desire for revenge. It contains the primal voice that whispers, "Strike back. Destroy what destroyed you." When Charlie Kirk was killed, the collective shadow rose instantly. Voices called for vengeance. Social media celebrated the death. Others demanded retaliation. This is how the shadow works. Unseen, unacknowledged. It erupts in moments of crisis. Erika Kirk did something radical. She did not deny the shadow. She did not hide her grief. But she refused to let it rule her. By speaking forgiveness, she performed an act of shadow integration. Integration does not mean erasing anger. It means holding anger in the light of consciousness, so it does not control us. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Erika made the darkness conscious. She looked at the killer. She looked at her pain. She spoke the words, "Forgive." And in that moment, the shadow lost its grip. This is why her speech felt archetypal, because she embodied what Jung described, the transformation of raw instinct into conscious choice. The crowd expected rage. Instead, they witnessed integration. They saw that forgiveness is not weakness, forgiveness is strength. In Jungian terms, Erika became a container for the collective shadow. She absorbed the fury of thousands, she held it, and she transmuted it into a higher response. This is the essence of shadow work, not to project our darkness outward, but to face it within and to choose the path of healing. Collective ritual, from funeral to revival. Funerals are usually heavy with sorrow. They focus on loss. They focus on fear of death. They close the circle of a life. But the memorial for Charlie Kirk was something different. It felt less like an ending and more like a revival. The audience did not sit in despair. They stood. They clapped. They sang hymns of victory. They did not only mourn Charlie, they celebrated his life. They proclaimed that his mission would not die with him. Carl Jung would see this as ritual, a collective act that channels unconscious energy. A moment where the shadow of grief and rage is lifted into symbolic form. Through Erika's words, through prayer, through music, the energy of death was transmuted into the archetype of renewal. This is what Jung called sublimation. The raw instinct for revenge was redirected into faith. The impulse toward despair was redirected into hope. The funeral became a stage where archetypes came alive. The martyr, the prophet, the forgiver. Each image activated the collective psyche. Sana Ebrahimi, a Muslim woman, witnessed this transformation. She compared it with funerals in her own tradition, often filled with fear of judgment, fear of the grave, fear of God's wrath. And she confessed something remarkable, that she felt envy. Envy for the joy, the love, the hope she saw in this Christian ritual. This is the mark of a true archetype. It transcends culture. It touches even those outside the faith. It reveals that beneath the symbols there is a shared human truth. The ritual of Charlie Kirk's memorial was not just for one community. It was a mirror for humanity, a reminder that the shadow of death can be turned into the light of renewal. Sana Ebrahimi's witness. Sana Ebrahimi stood outside this tradition. She was not a Christian. She grew up in a Muslim culture. Her experience of funerals was very different. In her world, death was framed by fear, fear of the grave, fear of divine punishment. Funerals were warnings of terror, not celebrations of life. Watching Erika Kirk speak, Sana felt something new. The atmosphere was heavy with loss, yet filled with light. It was grief, wrapped in joy. It was mourning, infused with hope. She wrote that she was moved deeply, unexpectedly. She admitted envy. Envy for a community that could face death with love instead of fear. From a Jungian perspective, this is extraordinary. It shows that archetypes do not belong to one religion. They move across boundaries. They speak a universal language of the psyche. The archetype of the forgiver, embodied by Erika. The archetype of the martyr, embodied by Charlie. These images resonated with Sana, even though they came from outside her faith. Jung said the collective unconscious is shared by all humanity. It contains symbols, myths, patterns that repeat in every culture. When Sana felt envy, it was not only personal. It was the unconscious recognizing itself. It was the shadow of fear meeting the possibility of hope. This moment reveals a deeper truth. When a ritual touches archetypal depths, it can heal not only those inside the tradition, but even those watching from afar. Charlie Kirk's memorial, through Erika's forgiveness, became more than a Christian event. It became a human event, a window into what Jung described as the universal struggle between shadow and light. The Jungian Question. Carl Jung warned, the shadow cannot be destroyed. It can only be faced. If we deny it, it controls us from the dark. The death of Charlie Kirk presented a choice. Two paths. The first path is revenge. The shadow takes possession. Grief hardens into hatred. Hatred projects outward, onto political enemies, onto strangers, onto whoever can carry the blame. In this path, the cycle continues. Hurt breeds hurt. Violence calls for more violence. The shadow multiplies itself in endless projection. The second path is forgiveness. Forgiveness does not erase pain. It does not excuse injustice, but it prevents possession. It keeps the shadow in sight, so it cannot dominate from below. To forgive is to integrate. To say, yes, I feel rage. Yes, I feel grief. But I will not let these feelings rule me. This is not weakness. It is the greatest strength, because it transforms instinct into consciousness. Erika Kirk stood at this crossroads. The world expected anger. She chose forgiveness, and in choosing, she modeled the second path. She showed what Jung called the work of individuation, the movement toward wholeness. This is the Jungian question for all of us. When tragedy strikes, when the shadow rises, which path will we choose? Will we let vengeance consume us and call it justice? Or will we face the shadow and turn it into a force for renewal? The answer to that question will shape not only our private lives, but the future of entire nations. Charlie Kirk's death was a tragedy. But what matters now is not only how he died, but how we respond. We can let the shadow possess us, filling our hearts with rage, feeding the cycle of vengeance. Or we can choose the harder path, the path of integration, the path of forgiveness, the path Erika Kirk modeled before the world. Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. If we remain blind, fate will be vengeance. But if we awaken, fate can become renewal. The choice is ours. The shadow is here. Will it rule us, or will we transform it? Now I turn to you. What did you feel when you heard Erika's words of forgiveness? Did they challenge you? Did they inspire you? Or did they unsettle you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Join the dialogue, because dialogue is where healing begins. If this exploration of Carl Jung Shadow Work helped you see this moment more clearly, subscribe for more. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that forgiveness is strength. And remember, the shadow is not the end of the story. It is the beginning, if we have the courage to face it together.